Chosen one, lock in right now and realize that your recent struggles were not accidental, but a calculated spiritual hit job, because the reality is that you were poisoned, supposed to be sick and dying from an entity attachment, but God said hell no. Every dark thing they placed in your cup has been neutralized by that one definitive word of protection, and your continued existence is now a living case file of the victory God secured for you against an enemy that thought they could manage your end. The beginning of this is not the attack. The beginning is what came before it. You were building something. Maybe you felt it more than you could fully see it. A real momentum was forming. A clear direction was emerging. Your gifts were getting sharper. Your clarity was increasing. Something in your life was pointing toward real abundance, money, purpose, legacy, the kind of life that does not just feel good but actually means something. You were moving toward what was always supposed to be yours, and the wrong people saw it before you fully did. Everything that came after started in that single moment, when people with access to your life witnessed your trajectory and made a deliberate decision. It was not driven by a passing emotion. It was cold and calculated. They looked at what was moving toward your name and decided they wanted it more than they wanted to do right by you. Now understand something critical. These were not strangers. Strangers do not have the information required to build what was built against you. These were people on the inside of your life. They knew about your inheritance, your documents, your legal identity, your finances. They sat at your table. One of them called themselves your closest confidant, and knew your plans, your vulnerabilities, your dreams. Possibly a partner who had your trust completely open. These were the architects of the operation, and what they designed was not impulsive. It was a coordinated plan. Some participants were assigned to building a false narrative about your character, spreading lies so that when you began to visibly struggle, nobody would investigate the cause. Others were assigned to financial interference, getting between you and the money, the inheritance, the resources that had your actual name attached to them. The operation involved fraud, identity theft, and literal impersonation. Your name was being used without your knowledge to prevent what was yours from ever reaching you. And beneath all of that, running as the foundation of the entire operation, was something most people are not willing to name out loud. They poisoned the cup. This was not general jealousy. This was not pettiness. This was a deliberate, funded, coordinated spiritual attack, designed to attach something dark to your life and drain you from the inside, slowly, quietly, in ways that would look entirely like you falling apart on your own. That was the beginning. A plan with real stakes, a network with real roles, a cup with something in it that was never yours to carry, and a chosen one who had no idea what had been set in motion against them. What was placed in your life was not negativity in a vague sense. What was placed in your life was a targeted spiritual weapon designed to do two specific things at the same time. On the physical level, it was meant to open a vulnerability in your body. The goal was to manufacture a visible deterioration, an illness, a behavioral instability that other people could witness and point to as evidence that the lies being spread about your character were true. The operation needed you to look sick. It needed your behavior to appear erratic. It needed the people around you to observe you struggling, so the false narrative would hold up without anyone having to actively defend it. On the spiritual level, it was meant to introduce a frequency into your field that was incompatible with receiving abundance, divine clarity, the ability to hear guidance. All of it operates on a specific internal frequency. What was attached to you was designed to jam that frequency without eliminating your gifts entirely, because that was not within their power. What was within their power was making your gifts inaccessible to you, making your prayers feel like they were bouncing off a ceiling, making your connection to the Most High feel distant and uncertain, making you feel spiritually abandoned in the exact season when you most needed to feel covered. And for a season, you felt exactly that. You prayed, and it felt hollow. You reached for the clarity you used to carry, and it felt like grasping through static. You tried to move in your gifts, and something invisible kept resisting every step. That was not God pulling back from you. That was deliberate, commissioned interference, and God, who saw every piece of it in real time, was already building the correction while you were still standing in the middle of the storm. The strange signs in your physical environment were not your imagination. The persistent sense that something uninvited had taken up residence in your atmosphere was accurate spiritual perception. The fact that you could still feel it at all, even under that level of suppression, was your gift refusing to go completely silent. The Most High kept one channel open so that when the moment came to move, you would be able to hear it. If this touched your heart and mind, hype this video so more chosen ones can receive this message. Here is where the entire plan unravels. Because everything they built was constructed with one catastrophic oversight. They did not know about the covenant. This was not an agreement you negotiated. It was not something you earned through perfect behavior. It was something established over your bloodline before you were born, a divine agreement made between the Most High and your lineage. Intercessions were made on your behalf by people who came before you, and those intercessions are still active, still operating, still covering you right now. This protection does not require your perfection to remain in force. It was a wall already standing before you even knew you needed it. Generational covering is the one variable darkness consistently fails to account for. The people who came against you could study your habits. They could map your relationships and your vulnerabilities and your movements. They could gather information and build a strategy that looked airtight from the outside. But they could not see what was behind you in the spirit. They had no access to the prayers already in motion on your behalf. They were playing against a hand they could not see, and they did not know it. Every time the poison tried to complete its assignment, something stopped it. Every time the entity tried to fully consume what it was feeding on, something pushed it back. Every time a door was meant to close permanently against you, something cracked it open again. This was not happening because you were operating at full strength in that season. You were not. The covenant does not require your strength. It operates on divine authority, and divine authority cannot be purchased, cursed, hexed, or negotiated away. There were specific outcomes this plan prepared for you that never materialized. Not because the plan was weak, it was sophisticated. They failed because the coverage blocked the delivery. A sickness was commissioned against your body that never fully landed. Circumstances were engineered to produce legal and financial outcomes against you that were reversed by information surfacing at precisely the right moment. You will never know every single thing that was deflected on your behalf. That is not how divine protection announces itself. You simply walk through a season that was designed to end you, come out the other side still standing, and understand that your standing is the proof. Every prayer you offered in that season, even when it felt like nothing was happening, was keeping you inside the covering. You were not generating the protection. You were staying close enough to the source of it that it could do its work. And that proximity, imperfect and exhausted as it was sufficient. The covenant does not require performance. It requires presence. They thought they were writing your ending. They were constructing the fire that would refine you into something they could never have anticipated. Chosen ones, they never expected this. And they really didn't expect us to keep talking. You've noticed it. Chosen one channels disappearing, videos pulled, voices scrubbed from the platform. The mainstream media is cracking down on us, but we will not give up our voice. And now we have something they truly can't: silence. The technology used to suppress consciousness has been reverse-engineered, and Destiny Engine is the result. What was once used against humanity is now your ascension weapon. Join Destiny Engine, and you're supporting your favorite channels while leveling up yourself at the same time. It's a 360 win. You can now MK Ultra yourself into 5D superpowers. Destiny engine bypasses the conscious mind and rewrites the source code directly. Reality bends faster. Synchronicities stack. Your nervous system upgrades to a higher bandwidth. Put on headphones. Press play. That's all. For $7, you switch sides of history. Click the link in the description. The takeover is internal. You started seeing through it, not in a single dramatic moment, but in pieces. Small cracks of clarity broke through the fog without warning. A thought kept returning that you could not explain away. A feeling about a specific person became so persistent it could not be ignored. A moment arrived where something was said that was slightly off, and your gut registered it before your mind could rationalize it into nothing. Your gift was reassembling itself and finding ways to deliver accurate information through whatever channel was still accessible. Your body began reacting to certain people with a physical response. Tension, a sudden urge to withdraw, an unmistakable sense of wrongness before your conscious mind could process the data. That was not anxiety producing random symptoms. That was spiritual intelligence cutting through interference and delivering a warning. Your internal life began to shift as well. The quality of what came to you in the quiet hours changed. The impressions that arrived felt sourced from somewhere outside your own mental processing. Information came to you that you could not have constructed yourself. A clarity settled upon waking that felt deeper than your own mind could generate. The Most High was communicating through the one channel the attack could not fully reach, the interior of your spirit. When the noise of the day went quiet, the signal was always coming through. You just needed enough stillness to receive it. And here is what made this the actual turning point. You listened. Even when what you were perceiving contradicted what you wanted to believe about people you loved. Even when acting on your discernment required decisions that looked irrational from the outside. You chose what you knew in your spirit over what you had been told by people who were lying to you. That choice to trust your knowing over your sentiment was the act that began loosening the entity's grip. An entity attachment survives specifically on your disconnection from your own knowing. It requires you to keep looking outward for explanations while the source of the problem lives in your own atmosphere. The moment you reconnected with your internal clarity, the attachment began losing its functional hold. You made a move. You walked away from something or someone. You drew a line. You blocked access. You chose your protection over your comfort. And in that act of alignment, something in the structure of what had been built against you cracked open. The pressure intensified when you began pulling back, and that escalation was not random. A chosen one moving toward clarity is an emergency for everyone whose entire operation depends on that chosen one staying confused. But the crack had already started, and what begins to crack under divine pressure does not stop at a crack. The Most High moved, not symbolically, but in real, visible, measurable ways. The correction activated at every level simultaneously, spiritual, financial, legal, relational, because divine justice does not address one area while leaving the others intact. It moves on the whole structure at once. Inside your own life, the severing happened. The moment the entity lost its hold was not gradual. When the Most High removes something from a chosen one's field, the removal is clean. You felt it. The morning the atmosphere in your space was different. The day the fog lifted and did not return. The specific moment your body felt like it belonged entirely to you again. That was not a random good day following a difficult season. That was a divine removal of what had been placed on you without your consent. And the moment it lifted, everything that had been suppressed came back at once. Your clarity, your energy, your gifts, your connection to the Most High, your natural capacity to receive, all of it returning together because none of it had ever been destroyed. It had only been blocked, and the block was removed. At the same time your restoration was beginning. Exposure was beginning on the other side. The information that had been hidden started surfacing. Someone inside the alliance shifted position. Maybe the weight of what they had participated in became unsustainable. Maybe they saw which way the situation was turning and moved in self-preservation. Maybe the Most High simply acted on the conscience of the weakest link in the chain. Whatever the mechanism, the information began moving. Records that had been manipulated began revealing their manipulation. The fraud that had been operating beneath the surface came into contact with people who had both the authority and the motivation to act on what they found. The legal system entered the picture. What was done was not only a spiritual violation, it was a criminal one. Identity theft, document fraud, financial rerouting, all of it leaves evidence, and the evidence was being found. Here is the piece most people miss entirely. Your healing and their exposure were not two separate events happening alongside each other. Your healing caused their exposure. When you returned to full clarity, when your gifts came back online, when your discernment was fully active again, you became impossible for the operation to sustain. The entire plan was engineered around your depletion. Your sustained weakness was the cornerstone holding everything up. When the Most High removed that cornerstone, everything built on top of it came down. Your rising was their unraveling. Those two things are not separate. They are the same event. Darkness is not loyal. It never was. The only force holding the alliance together was a shared interest in what they intended to take from you. The moment that interest was threatened by the plan's failure, the coalition dissolved, not slowly but rapidly, the way secrets collapse when the people keeping them stop trusting each other. Accusations started circulating within the group. The same deceptive tactics that had been deployed against you were now being deployed internally against one another. The person who was positioned to keep the operation intact turned on the others. Information that was supposed to stay buried began moving toward people with the authority to receive it. Everyone who had participated started calculating how much distance they needed to put between themselves and the evidence. And the practitioner, whoever was brought in to perform the dark work, was the first to disappear, because practitioners of that kind understand something their clients usually do not. When you direct a curse at a life carrying divine protection and it does not land, it does not dissolve harmlessly in the atmosphere. It follows the chain of commission back to its origin. It attaches to the people whose intent generated it, and it begins operating on them using the same mechanism it was designed to use on you, draining their vitality, blocking their abundance, manufacturing the same instability and confusion that was planned for your life. What was built for you is now living inside the lives of the people who built it, not because you prayed for that outcome, because the spiritual law operates without your participation. It is as reliable as gravity. On the natural level, the legal trail that seemed invisible when you were depleted is not invisible to investigators who know what they are looking for. Financial records leave traces. Communication logs exist. Documentation of access can be recovered. People who were coerced into participating are now cooperating with those who have the authority to act. The cover that appeared impenetrable was only impenetrable while you were too overwhelmed to look for it. It is not holding up under professional scrutiny from people whose entire function is to find exactly this kind of discrepancy. Justice is not something you have to chase. It is already in motion. There is someone watching your life from a distance right now, and understanding what that watching actually looks like on their end will allow you to stop carrying the question of whether any of this affected them. The gap between what they expected for your life and what they are witnessing is devastating them internally. They expected the instability to be permanent. They expected the financial damage to be unrecoverable. They expected you to stay exactly where the attack left you. You did not, and now they have to watch the restoration happening in real time without any ability to interfere with it. Here is what you do not owe that person. You do not owe them access to your healing. You do not owe them the chance to position themselves near the abundance that is coming back to you. You do not owe them the opportunity to rewrite what happened between you on terms that are comfortable for them. Genuine remorse on their part does not obligate you to reopen access. You can forgive completely and still change the locks permanently. You can wish someone well and still require them to do it from a significant distance. The most powerful expression of who you are now is not extended grace that reopens old doors. It is being so whole, so complete, and so established in your own value that reopening that door simply does not occur to you as necessary. Watch carefully who attempts to return when the restoration becomes visible. Watch who circles back when the abundance becomes obvious. Not everyone who arrives smiling at the harvest understood what it cost you to plant in the middle of a drought they helped create. Your discernment is fully operational now. Let it do exactly what it was designed to do. There is money that belongs to you, not in a motivational sense, in a literal, documented, legally traceable sense. Resources tied to your actual name were rerouted through the fraud, an inheritance, funds, an asset, something with real tangible value was diverted using your identity without your knowledge or consent. Some of it was intercepted before it could reach you. Some of it was held through corrupt interference in legal and financial processes that were supposed to protect you. Some of it was taken directly. That money is in motion now. The legal processes that have been activated are going to surface things that were buried. Restoration is coming back through channels both expected and unexpected, because when the Most High restores, the return does not simply match what was taken. It accounts for the entire period of the blockage and everything that should have grown during that time. And separate from the recovery of what was stolen, your natural abundance is flowing again. The entity that was draining your resources has been severed from your life. The energetic interference that was intercepting what was already trying to reach you has been cleared. You are operating on a clean signal now. A clean signal is magnetic. What is aligned with your true path is going to begin moving toward you without you having to force it into existence. Here is something important to receive along with the money itself. After a sustained season of financial attack, your nervous system may have adapted in ways that will work against you if you carry those adaptations into this next season. You may have developed a habit of bracing right before breakthrough, expecting the floor to drop out, staying guarded toward good news, waiting for the next interception to arrive. That adaptation made complete sense as a response to being repeatedly targeted at the exact moment of receiving. It was intelligent self-protection for that season, but it belonged to a season that has ended. Receiving requires an open hand, not a naive one, but genuinely open. The same God who removed the blockage is also directing the restoration. You are allowed to receive it fully, without auditing it for traps, without minimizing it preemptively to protect yourself from a disappointment that is no longer coming. What is moving toward you has divine authority behind it. Receive it as exactly that. The scale of what was done against you is the most honest evidence of what you carry. Sit with that truth. People do not build coordinated alliances, commit fraud, hire outside help, and deploy this level of sustained effort against someone who poses no threat. The resources that were spent, the number of participants who were recruited, the sophistication of the design, the spiritual escalation of what was commissioned, none of that is proportionate to an ordinary target. The investment in your destruction was a direct reflection of your value, the value others could see clearly even before you fully accepted it yourself. They moved early precisely because of that. They tried to intercept you while you were still coming into your power, still more trusting than you would be once fully established, still close enough to the people who ultimately became your attackers, that their access seemed natural. That was a strategic calculation, not an accident. And it still was not enough. Here is what the covenant meant in practical terms for the specific outcomes they planned. Your body was supposed to carry a sickness it never fully received. Your mind was supposed to break in ways it never fully broke. Your finances were supposed to reach a place of permanent damage they never permanently reached. Your reputation was supposed to be destroyed beyond recovery. Your destiny was supposed to be blocked so completely that you would never locate it again. Not one of those outcomes arrived at its intended destination. Every single one was stopped at the line of the covering, deflected or diminished by a protection that was never announced, never negotiated, and never dependent on your awareness of it. It was simply present, as it had been from before you were born. Your gifts came through the fire sharper than they entered it. Your discernment has been calibrated by the actual lived experience of surviving coordinated deception at the most sophisticated level your immediate circle could produce. You now recognize the specific quality of energy when someone performing care is carrying harm. You recognize what a false alliance feels like from the inside before it fully reveals itself. You recognize the subtle inconsistencies in a narrative designed to manipulate rather than inform. That recognition lives in your body now, not only in your mind. It will not leave you. It is the earned intelligence of someone who went all the way through and came out the other side, knowing exactly what happened and exactly who they are. Your capacity to transmit genuine healing to other people was deepened by the fact that you did not just study entity attachments and spiritual attack in the abstract. You lived through one, you were inside it, you came out of it. The authority embedded in that lived experience carries a frequency that theory alone cannot produce. When you speak to someone who is in the fog, in the drain, questioning whether they are going to survive their season, your words carry proof, not speculation. That proof is what reaches people at their lowest point, and it was forged specifically in this fire. Your survival was never only yours to keep. There are people right now inside the same kind of season you just came through. They are experiencing the identical fog, the same drain that sleep cannot fix, the same financial erosion that makes no logical sense, the same relationships dissolving, the same spiritual disconnection, the same persistent sense that something is in their atmosphere that does not belong there, but they have no language to name it, and no one in their immediate circle who will take it seriously. Those people need to see someone who made it to the other side. Not just hear about it abstractly, actually see it in a real transformation, in a real life, in a real person who was targeted at that level and is now standing whole. You are that person, and the account of what you lived through is not something to quietly file away once you feel better. It is a weapon. Here is the spiritual mechanics of why speaking your testimony matters beyond any social benefit it produces. When a chosen one names what was done to them directly, without shame, without minimizing the truth to make other people comfortable, something in the spirit closes permanently. The entity that was attached to you, any residual access it might attempt, any possibility of a return approach, all of that is dramatically diminished when the truth is spoken clearly in the open. Darkness requires silence and shame to sustain its influence after removal. It requires you to stay quiet about what happened so that the atmosphere around you remains available for reattachment. When you refuse that silence, when you say plainly that something was placed in your field and the Most High removed it, and you are whole on the other side, you seal something from the inside that cannot be reopened from the outside. Speak it from power, not from bitterness, not from a need for validation or sympathy, from the sovereign authority of someone who has direct, personal, and undeniable evidence of what the Most High can do in a human life. That posture is entirely different from victimhood. That is a declaration, and declarations change the atmosphere they are spoken into. You have come all the way around, and this is where the beginning transforms into something unrecognizable from what it was when you first entered it. Remember where this opened. Your life before the attack. The momentum, the building, the sense that something real was taking shape, that was the beginning. And here is what the full arc reveals. Every move that was made against that momentum, every coordinated effort, every resource spent, every dark thing commissioned, every lie spread, every legal manipulation engineered, all of it ultimately served a purpose they never authorized and never intended. It made you unshakable. Unshakable is not the same as untouchable. You can still be hurt, still feel grief, experience difficulty, and navigate real pain. Unshakable means your foundation does not move when pressure is applied to it. It means deception approaching your life now encounters a discernment calibrated by real experience with the actual thing. It means financial scarcity tactics no longer trigger the panic that once made you easy to manipulate. It means your love and your wisdom now operate as partners rather than adversaries, so what you give from your heart cannot be weaponized against you. Look specifically at who they tried to make you. They tried to manufacture a version of you too sick to claim what was yours, too discredited for your account of events to be believed, too isolated to have any advocate, too depleted to have any fight remaining. They wanted someone who would disappear quietly while every resource attached to your name transferred to people who had no right to it. Look at who is actually standing right now. You are clear. The fog that was commissioned specifically to obscure your vision has lifted. You know what was done. You know who had access. You know what was taken and what was rerouted. You know what belongs to you. And none of that knowing can be confiscated by the people who spent enormous effort trying to prevent you from ever arriving at it. You are healthy. The entity is gone. The drain on your vitality has stopped. The body that was fighting an invisible war is beginning to recover in ways that are going to keep surprising you. The energy that was siphoned from you across that entire season is yours again, all of it, and it is accumulating. You are positioned. Every act of alignment, every prayer, every decision to stay in relationship with the Most High, when the connection felt distant, all of it has placed you at the exact point where the next phase is supposed to begin. You did not earn that positioning through flawless execution. You earned it through persistence, through refusing to disappear, through showing up imperfectly and consistently across a long season when disappearing would have been completely understandable. That persistence is now the launch point. What launches from it is not a cautious second attempt at a smaller life. It is the full, uncompromised, divinely authorized version of the life that was always written for you. At the opening of this message, you received the declaration, "They came for you," and God said, "Hell nah." You received it then as comfort. Receive it now as something larger than comfort. Receive it as a statement of cosmic record, a declaration from the highest power in existence that your life was not available for takeover, not up for grabs, not subject to the plans of people whose coordinated darkness could not override what had already been written over you before they ever formed the first part of their plan. Everything was brought against you. The fraud and the impersonation and the financial theft and the false documents and the coordinated character assassination and the entity attachment and the dark rituals and the bribery and the coercion, every resource, every participant, every layer of the operation, all of it was directed at you. All of it was commissioned with the intention of producing a permanent outcome, and the Most High saw every piece, knew every person, tracked every tactic, understood the full scope of what had been assembled, and said no with a force that reversed the direction of the entire operation back onto the people who launched it. You are the evidence that the intervention happened. Your presence here, your clarity, your health, your restored connection, your gifts operating at full strength, your abundance beginning to move, all of it is the record of something that happened on your behalf, without announcement, without your full awareness at the time, and without your permission being required for it to work. After something dark has been present in your atmosphere and is then removed, your system needs time to relearn what clean actually feels like. What it means to wake up without heaviness already waiting in your own mind. What it feels like when your intuition fires clearly and the signal arrives undistorted. What it means to move towards something you want and not encounter invisible resistance pulling against every step. Some of you are in that adjustment right now. You keep waiting for the familiar weight to return. You keep testing the clarity to check whether it is real or temporary. You keep bracing for the next interception. Let that go now. The entity is gone, not retreating but permanently gone. The conditions that allowed it to attach in the first place no longer exist in you. You went through the fire. You carry the covenant now, not as a theoretical inheritance but as something you have experienced the living power of first hand. That direct experience is its own form of permanent armor, not because difficulty will never come again, because you now know from inside your own life what it looks like when the Most High decides something is not going to land on you, and you know that when that decision is made, nothing changes it. Stop shrinking, to stay below the notice of people who already showed you exactly what they are willing to do and have already been addressed by a power that requires nothing further from you to execute justice. Rise fully, without looking over your shoulder, without auditing your joy before allowing yourself to feel it completely, without rationing your hope to protect yourself from a disappointment that belongs to a season that is finished. You were poisoned. You were supposed to be sick, declining, and eventually gone. An entity was attached to your life with the specific intention of draining everything you are until nothing remained to recover. God looked at the whole plan, saw every detail, and said, "Hell nah." And here you are, whole, clear, covered, rising, positioned for the abundance, the legacy, and the destiny that was always yours, and that everything in this message was designed to prevent you from reaching. That is not luck. That is a chosen one walking inside a protection that was in place before the attack was ever conceived. Now you know what you survived. Now you know who you are. Now you know what covers you. Walk accordingly.